thank everyone for being here this evening. My name is Jennifer Atencio, and I am the support counselor at Allen High School. And so we have asked Susan Carlson from Collin College to come and speak to you all today just about the program services, scholarships, and things of that nature that are available to students who are currently in the foster care system, students who have been adopted out of the system as well. And she's primarily going to focus on students who have been in the system in the state of Texas. However, she will likely also touch on the fact that there are students who may have been adopted from out of state. And so she can also direct you and provide you some level of information on that as well. But so I'd like to read her bio. So forgive me for not having this memorized, but I want to do her justice with all of her accolades. So Susan Carlson completed a program at the Utah College of Massage Therapy and holds a Bachelor's of Science in Business with a concentration in Human Resource Management from the University of Phoenix. Susan felt a strong connection to healing as well as higher education, so she worked part-time as a massage therapist and full-time at the Steiner Education Group in administration, where she was able to open new campuses in Arizona, Colorado, and finally Texas. Susan ultimately decided to resign from her position as a campus director in February of 2013 to become a foster parent. After completing the foster parent licensing and certification process, Susan started working at Collin College in February of 2014 in the financial aid department, where she is able to help students attain the funding and benefits needed to complete their educational goals. Susan and her husband fostered 16 children over a period of 8 years and ultimately stopped fostering upon the adoption of their son and daughter in April of 2021. Susan is on the Empowering Youth Aging Out of Foster Care Task Force, which is helping to create a mobile application called Empowering Youth for Texas foster youth to have all resources in one place. Susan was selected to be the foster care liaison for Collin College in February of 2020 because of her extreme passion for continuing to help this particular group of students and their supporting community by sharing knowledge of the available resources, being a guide in their utilization of these resources to achieve their life and educational goals, and to instill fostering success for their future. So I'm going to turn it over to Susan here in just a second. So as you will probably notice here, you can only see us at this point. And if you have questions as Susan goes throughout the presentation, if you will just please enter those into the chat, and I will funnel those questions to her. I'm also going to put both of our emails in the chat. That way, if you have questions directly for Susan after the presentation or for myself, you'll have a way to communicate with us. And then also, so I'll put that. And then also towards the end of our presentation, there's going to be a slide that has a ton of links on it. And I will be happy to email those to you as well. I think that does all the housekeeping stuff. This is being recorded, and it will be posted on the College and Career website, along with the Parent Education website on the Allen ISD website. So my hope is that we'll be able to get that up, hopefully by the time spring break rolls around. So anyway, thanks so much for being here, Susan. We really appreciate it.
Of course, of course. So weird to have somebody talk about, your bio. It's always awkward kind of sitting through it, but yes, loved it. Love every second of it. So hopefully the biggest thing that I want to make sure is that every student knows their resources and has a contact and knows exactly where they need to go and how to get the information. So if I can be a guide for that, that is all I care about. Yes, I am from Collin, and yes, I would love for all the students to come here, of course, but I understand that that's not going to happen, but I'm still very happy to give information and pass on, the foster care liaison list that is online, and there's a link to that. And each Texas college is required to have a foster care liaison. So there is a list. It is not always updated. So be patient with that. And I guess that's a big word of the year for me is patience, along with the FAFSA changes. But we'll get into that. But the foster care liaisons are there to help guide you. And if they don't have the answer to whatever questions that you have at the school, they are going to be able to provide you with the person that has it, at least, and help guide you along the way, which is good. Now, the resources that we have mainly, and there's a lot to go over, and I know it seems like this is not a lot on a list, but there's a lot of information in these 4 things. So we're going to go over a little bit about the FAFSA. It's just going to be a little bit of a touch on that, but it's going to be a big thing for everybody. The FAFSA is where everybody wants to know exactly if they're independent, dependent, things like that. And then the tuition waiver. So if you were out of Texas DFPS, with the adoption or legal guardianship to another family member, which I think they call permanent managing conservatorship, or PMC, as foster parents might, know that term. And if that's something that happened, we'll go over those specific scenarios for the FAFSA and the tuition waiver. And ETV benefits, education training voucher, is what ETV stands for. So we'll go over about what that is and who qualifies for that. And we will go over certain scholarships that are specific to this group. A lot of information. Now, first, the FAFSA. We definitely want to make sure that everybody applies for it and knows how to fill it out. Everybody can apply, but everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different depending on how you were in the foster system and how you exited and when you exited. So these are the different requirements to be independent versus if you're going to be a dependent student. Independent meaning you just use, or the student would just use their own tax information for whatever year that's being requested. And dependent meaning that you would have to provide a parent's information. So adoptive parents could possibly be required to put their information on there, depending on the age of the adoption. So everyone definitely should apply. And I always say that just because after the COVID happened, after COVID, we did have a CARES Grant Act that everybody got something if you had FAFSA on file. Everybody, meaning if you were in school. So if you were taking classes at that time, you would have gotten a grant of some sort, which it might not have been anything but $300, but hey, free money is free money, right? So that's why I always say everybody should apply, even if you don't think you qualify, at least do the application. Now, to be independent, specifically, everybody that has been in foster care on or after their 13th birthday. That's the question that is current on the FAFSA. So if you were ever in foster care, and this is not Texas specific, so you got to remember that a lot of these benefits are Texas specific, but FAFSA is federal. So this is for everybody. Now, foster on or after age 13. So if it was 12 and 364 days, that's, you can't say that you were in foster care after age 13 or on or after age 13. And that would be a no to that question and be dependent. And then you have to answer all the other questions. So if age 13 or older, yes, makes you independent and you just use your own information. Now, what does that mean? That's where the next two come into place. So if they went to a family member after age 13, even if it was PMC or legal guardianship, either one that you want to call it, you still answer yes to that question if it was after age 13 or on age 13. and you're independent still. But if you, let's see, if you were age 13 and you were adopted, but you were in foster care, then you still, at age 13, you still have independent status. So if you were adopted after age 13 from foster care, you can say yes and you are independent. If you were adopted even like 12 years, 364 days, you have to say no, and then you put your parents' information on the FAFSA. So there are situations that if, I don't even like talking about it, but it does happen to where, kids will be out of their adopted parents' homes and it maybe something happened or there wasn't a good situation or something happens. There is still a way to possibly be independent, but you have to be able to explain the situation, and there's a lot of paperwork, but it's called a dependency override, and we would have to go by very special circumstances. So these circumstances are abandonment by parents, an abusive family environment that threatens the student's health or safety, or the student being unable to locate the parents. No, that sounds awful. It does happen, unfortunately. So I just want everybody to know that there are options available for situations, and to just be honest and go to your financial aid office and talk to them about it. And then if they, if none of those things happened, but parents don't want to give information for the FAFSA, that does happen sometimes too. Then if they refuse the information, you can still get an unsubsidized only loan, which it's not the greatest, but it's still something, and you can still get something to be able to provide and go to school yourself. So there are options, is basically what I'm trying to say. There are a lot of different options, but everybody in foster care at age 13 or older can say yes, independent. And let's go on from here. Okay. FAFSA. Before I go on, can we see if there's any questions about the FAFSA specific? Because I want to make sure that I answer the FAFSA questions first. Or should we just wait and go on?
No, I think it's good to stop.
Okay, so if anybody has FAFSA questions, any specific situations, you can ask and I can go over that with you. Or you can email me if you'd rather have it private. That's absolutely fine. I don't see anything in the chat.
It may be taking a minute to type too. So do you want to proceed, and then we can circle back to it after you finish the tuition waiver?
Okay. All right, so the tuition waiver is one of the best benefits about being in Texas. Oh, how do we know if FAFSA was received? Okay. FAFSA, the 2024-2025 is the one that is going to be for students that are graduating and starting in the fall. Now, if they start in the summer, they could have to do 2 different FAFSA applications. The summer for us at Collin, we use the 2023-2024 application. So you'd have to do both because it's a crossover period. But you can follow up with the institution. Everybody is a little bit different, and that's where it's going to be really important to contact the financial aid office about 3 business days after you submit the application on a normal basis. Now, with this 24-25, because they've changed the FAFSA this year and everything is completely different, a lot of schools are not going to be able to start processing until April, which normally we would start receiving the FAFSA in it started October 1st is when it usually opens up, but we only opened up December 31st this year. And normally we want you to do it before January 15th as a priority deadline, but now it's going to be April 15th or March 15th for priority deadline. So everything's moved back this year. So it's all going to be a little bit different, but then next year it should go back to October 1st when you do it. And then you should be able to contact your school within 3 business days after you submit. This time I would say wait until end of March, maybe, because they're not feeding us the information yet. Yeah, you fill out an application, which is online in the government website, studentaid.gov, and then you put up to 20 schools. It filters to those schools in the information record, but we aren't going to be able to pull those yet. So it's going to be probably end of March before we get anything at Collin. And then, yeah, I would say April will start to actually offer awards. So just be patient this year. That's going to be, again, my big word for the year is patient or patience. And, but normally 3 business days after you make any kind of transaction or submission on the FAFSA, you should be able to contact the financial aid office. All right, that was a long answer. I'm sorry. Anybody else have questions? Definitely just submit it in the chat. Let's see. Okay, tuition waiver. Let's just move on for that. And it is definitely the best thing that Texas could have ever done for, these youth, because it has the ability to, they have this for life if they put it in place by age 25. So that's the biggest thing, is to make sure that the tuition waiver, you get it as soon as you can even get it while you're in school. If you're going to be doing dual credit classes, you can actually use the tuition waiver for that. So you can get it from the PAL worker, or you can get it from your adoption specialist. And I can show you those websites. Those are some of the links that we have at the very end of this presentation, is how to find out who your PAL worker is for your region, because it does go off of where the case is, or where the adoption case completed. So you just have to know which region, which county, and I can show you kind of where to find that. State school, which is not. Okay, how do I know which is a state school? That's a good question. There are state funded schools, and there are the for-profit or private schools, and they do not have to honor it. The biggest thing I can say is use that foster care liaison list, which is going to be the first link at the end of this resource presentation. And every single foster care liaison for the state, with each school listed, so you will know which schools are on there. And that will be a very big help. But there's a lot of, institutional or for-profit is what we call it, schools. They do not have to take it. They might take it and you can ask, but they are not required to. So let's see. So make sure the biggest thing is to get the waiver first, and to be able to submit it to whichever school you're going to go to and use it. Even if you take one class, and this is what I really want to instill in everybody, is that if you even take one class, no matter how you do in it, you have it in place for life. And that's the biggest thing, is that sometimes you're ready to go to school and sometimes you're not ready to go to school. And sometimes we are all human and we make mistakes, and sometimes we wait a few years and pause and come back, and that's okay. And that's the great part, is that you can, as long as you put it in place by 25th birthday, before the 25th birthday, so 24 and 364, you have to put it in place. And as long as you have it and have used it and enrolled in a school, then you will have it for life. And that is something that you will always be able to use. Double doctorate. Go do what you want to do, right? Certificates. there's certificates you can get as well. Let's see. So tuition and fees are what's covered. So it's not going to include books, supplies, living expenses, things like that. That's kind of more of what the FAFSA is for, is to cover those expenses. And that's why I say it's really important to do both. If you need the help, that's where it's going to bolster, is to cover help living. Now, you do have to request the tuition waiver. A lot of people think, well, I sent it to the school and now it's on file and it's going to be forever. You have to really be diligent that every single time that you register for a new class, that you make sure that the tuition waiver letter is on file for that semester, because it's a process and you have to request it each semester. Some schools might be able to put it on there for the whole year, and you only have to do it once a year. So again, you're going to want to contact your liaison and the financial aid office, or if it could be the cashier's office at some schools. So that's why I say go to the foster care liaison, because they're going to know who takes the waiver at that specific school. It could be the financial aid office. It could be the cashiers. It just depends. So talk to your foster care liaison, because a lot of foster care liaisons are in different departments. I just happen to be in financial aid and we're the ones that do it here. So it makes it a lot easier for me. But talk to your school, talk to the specific foster care liaison. Now, so you might have to do it each semester. You might have to do it for each class. It just really depends on that school and what their process is. So just really get to know what the process is. Now, you don't have to have a minimum or maximum credit requirements. So like I said, you can just take one class at a time and it's covered. There's not, you have to be in 6 credit hours, because a lot of the FAFSA, right? And that's where people get really confused, is that FAFSA, to get a loan, you have to be in 6 credit hours. To get certain grants, you have to be in at least 6 or 12, depending on your situation, to get the full awarded amount. This is just covering all tuition. So it doesn't matter how many credit hours that you're in, which is great. And they did have this back years ago. There used to be a GPA requirement to keep this in place, but they have removed that because they know that we need, sometimes we just need to have another chance, right? And the state of Texas is really great about that. So there's no more GPA requirements to keep it. You always have it. You can always go back. You can always change the trajectory path and just keep going. So that's one of the best parts. And then you just have to contact your PAL worker and get the DFPS tuition waiver letter, or your adoption specialist. So it just depends on what your specific situation is. Like I said, which region, to who you contact. Now,
So there's a question about, what does PAL stand for?
Okay. So PAL is Preparation for Adult Living. And if your current foster youth have to take a Preparation for Adult Living class, and it's a certain amount of hours that they take to prep them for how to budget, so finance stuff. Also, they do sex education. They do how to. They have. I don't really know everything that they do, but I think it's about 30 hours worth of prepping them for what to do in this circumstance, and who you need to contact, and how to do this, and how to, keep yourself, moving forward. So it's a really good class, and they have to do it now, I think, to get their letter when they age out, but it wasn't required for everybody. So PAL is Preparation for Adult Living. So they just call it PAL coordinator. So the leader of that is who is in charge of getting the tuition waiver letters to people by region. So hopefully that makes sense.
And there was another question. I'm going to assume the question is, can tuition waivers be applied to out-of-state colleges as well?
No. So if I know that there's other states that have similar benefits, but if they were from Texas and in Texas DFPS care and they have the Texas tuition waiver letter, it's just for Texas state schools. And like, that's why this was probably before we started this presentation, but I was saying at the very beginning that if you move out of state, even if you move somewhere and you're going to maybe an Ivy League school, right? Which is amazing. And that's awesome. You don't want to turn down that opportunity, right? But maybe you still want to take a few core credit, classes in Texas and save a little bit of money if it's not covered fully with scholarships or whatnot. And you can take your core classes through online with one of these state-supported schools still, even if you live out of state. So it doesn't matter where you live, but if you have this letter, you can still attend one of the Texas supported schools, which is great, and get that tuition, because that could save a lot of money. Hopefully that answered the question. All right, so qualify. Now this is kind of a lot. And it can be a little bit confusing, but we're going to go through each of them. Just if you have questions, please let me know, because it can be a little bit confusing. But if you're in DFPS conservatorship, which means you're in foster care, the day before your 18th birthday even, you get this waiver letter, which is great. So even if at the very end, right before 18, you still get that full lifetime support from the state of Texas, which is great. So the day before your 14th birthday, if you're also eligible for adoption on or after that day. So basically, if you're 14 and you're in DFPS, that's just another age that they put on here. There's nothing different about it. It's just you do qualify and you will get the letter. So the day you graduated from high school or received the equivalent of a high school diploma. So if you were still, let's see, if you turned 18, right, and you're still in high school, so 18 isn't the limit, right? So if you're still in high school and you go into DFPS care, you can still get that tuition waiver if you're still in high school. Now, the next one is adopted. So the day that you were adopted, if the adoption was on or after September 1st, 2009. So they only started giving this tuition benefit to all adopted kids after that date. So that's going to be a big, important one to remember. And the only way to know for sure is to contact that PAL coordinator or the adoption specialist for your region to see if, the student qualifies. And that's the only way to actually know for sure. But okay. Yeah, before that, it was not to all adopted students, but now they do, which is great. All right, so if you were 14 years or older on or after June 1st, 2016, and left DFPS's permanent managing conservatorship, or PMC like we call it, and returned to the legal responsibility of a parent. So if the student came in after their 14th birthday to foster care, and then they went back to a biological parent, the fact that they came into foster care after age 14 means that they're going to qualify for this tuition waiver, even if they go back to the parents. That's great benefit, because that just helps, that helps for the rest of their life, which is amazing. Love that. And then again, I don't know why they separated it. I think that they had the 16-year-old limit first, and then they added it back to 14. So I think that was just an add-on but same thing. So if they went back to the responsibility of a parent after age 16, same thing. But 14 is now the age, which is good. All right, so if you're enrolled in a dual credit course or other course, which is a high school student may earn joint high school and college credit, and we're in DFPS conservatorship on the day of enrollment. So again, this is kind of where the 18, they say kind of 18 is where they don't go above that except for these situations. So if you were still, in a dual credit course, and it kind of seems like the same thing, but I think the wording got some people, to question it, and then they had to clarify. So if you were enrolled in a dual credit course after your 18th birthday and you were in foster care, you would qualify. And then if you were adopted and were the subject of a financial assistance agreement, or subsidy is what they would call it, so everybody understands what that is, and that the student got the Medicaid benefits and monthly payments. So those are the only ones, if they had an agreement and they were an adopted agreement, that is the only one that the age limit of 25 to have to use it by does not, there's no limit. So they don't have to put it in place by age 25 because it's written in their agreement. So that's just, even if they go at 26 and that's their first time, they could get it. And that's for life. So that's the only difference with that last one. If you have any questions about your specific, you can definitely ask. But again, it's going to really be up to the PAL coordinator or the adoption specialist to verify that the student's qualified. All right, do we have any questions about that yet before we move on? And while I get a drink. I don't see any questions. Okay, education and training voucher. Now this is again a Texas benefit, which is phenomenal, but it does have an age limit as well. Well, not as well. Yes, there's different types of age limits, but this one is for all students that are aged out of foster. They can apply as long as they are under their 23rd birthday. Okay, so that's for all aged out foster that are under 23 that can apply for this. Or any adopted youth if they were adopted after age 16 or at age 16 and up. So if you adopted and, or if you were adopted at 16, 17, 18, then you would still be able to go for this because they want to give you more benefits to be able to help get you through school and help cover with living expenses, things like that. So this is a really great benefit. And the hard part is that you have to do the application. It's a whole nother application, kind of like the FAFSA, right? And there's paperwork to it. So there is work that you have to do to get this. It's not just calling someone and saying, hey, do I qualify? Can I get my letter? This one is, you have to fill out the application. You have to submit a budget. You have to submit your award letter from the school. You have to prove that you're there. So there's a lot to it, but it's so worth it because it's up to $5,000 per school year. So $1,666 and $67 per semester. So fall, spring, summer. So you wouldn't get the full $5,000 if you didn't go to all three. If that makes sense. But you also do have to have the FAFSA on file because it does go off of financial need. So if you don't have a FAFSA on file, you would not be able to do this or get this benefit. So another reason FAFSA is for everybody, right? Now, age 16 to 23 is the age limit for this group and for this benefit. And at 23, that's when they stop the benefit. So if you had it, the last time that you're going to get it is, the semester before you turn 23. After you're 23, the next semester, you would not get it. So do it early and utilize it the whole way through. But there's no grade requirements, but you have to be in 6 credit hours. So again, with the differences of the tuition waiver letter where you don't have to be in a specific amount of credit hours, this one you do. And this one, you just have to keep following up every single semester to submit your budget and your application. So it's an every semester application. So it is a lot of work, but it is really worth it to be able to bolster and have that, at your disposal. Now, they do have application dates that are way past what, when you have the FAFSA in place. So we always say for FAFSA, we want you to have everything done and you have to have aid in place or your classes would drop before the semester starts, right? No, if you forget and you haven't started it yet and you started the semester, let's say in August for fall, you can submit your ETV all the way up until October 1st. So it gives you a little bit of a cushion, a little bit of a window, and really go and have your foster care liaison help, because there's going to be a part that they have to help you with anyway. So you can definitely ask for that. And then for the financial aid, award letter, you'll have to get that from the financial aid office. So October 1st for fall, March 1st for spring, and July 1st for summer. And that is really great. And what I will say about education training voucher is that the coordinators for it really will help walk you through the situation and kind of let the student know exactly what they need, exactly when they need it, and walk through it with them. So they're very good about it. They will even come to a school and do a presentation for them and help them, which is cool. And they're just really great. They just want people to do it. So you do have to do all the checklist requirements. And if you don't know what SIL is, that's the, independent living. So the supervised independent living, which is if you age out of foster care, you can sign an agreement to extend it to age 21, I believe, and still be in SIL, supervised independent living. But still, it's technically in foster care, but they call it SIL instead. So if you're in SIL, then you cannot include in your budget the housing because it's already covered by the DFPS. So that's just what that means. And yeah, you have any questions about the ETV, education training voucher? Now I know that because I do have a student here that has an education training voucher from Missouri. So they were in foster care in Missouri and they had this benefit and it transferred into using it at a Texas school, which was really cool. So you'll have to just check with them to see if it transfers out of state, because it doesn't say, and I've never actually had that question asked before, but I do know that we have somebody here that gets it from Missouri, which is cool. Now, free money, scholarships, so important, right? And we've been talking about free money pretty much, with the education training voucher. That's exactly what that is. The tuition waiver letter is basically free money, right? Free tuition is free money. So you got to think of it in that way, right? But you have to put the work in. So now the scholarships, there are specific scholarships for the Texas foster youth. Now, that first one is the C. Ed Davis Powell Scholarship, $1,000 per academic year, $500 per semester. So it's very structured and set on the amount. Basic non-tuition needs, because tuition is already covered by your tuition waiver letter. So it would be, your school supplies is basically what that comes down to. And maybe it might include housing, possibly, but housing is not going to be covered by that much. So I would say your school supplies, like your books and, anything at the bookstore. And they do have specific field of study for that one. So you really, with any scholarship, you have to really look and see what the specific qualifications are. But that one has the majoring in government, political science, history, or other pre-law fields. So that's not going to be for everybody. And then the next one is for everybody that was aged out only. So adopted won't be able to get this next one. It's $1,000 per semester, $2,000 for 2 semesters or academic terms, because there are differences of semesters in terms and the wording. So just it means the same thing, but it's called different at different schools. So that's all that is. Now, you have to be a freshman to be eligible. You have to receive it your freshman year to be eligible to get the next year, the sophomore level. So that's why it's important to really go for all of your resources in the very beginning, because some of them only transfer if you keep going. So this one specifically, if you're not getting this scholarship as a freshman, you're not going to be able to get it as a sophomore, because that's the only way they give it to sophomores. Now, the next one, oh, and you have to be in 9 credit hours or 40 or more hours of coursework. Don't really know how you prove that one, but they probably have that on the application website. So the next one is the ISF scholarship, and they're a local organization that does scholarships for full-time undergrad students and full-time trade school students. So even if the school that you're going to is a for-profit trade school and don't accept the tuition waiver letter, you could possibly get this ISF scholarship to help with it, which is amazing. And it's for anyone under the age of 24 at the time of application that has lived experience in foster care. So that's adopted or aged out youth. So that one is for everyone, which is, really great. You just have to do it under age 24, and they are really responsive. And, they email me if I have a student that has applied. So they're really responsive, and it's a really good benefit to have. And then we have our resource page. Now, I talked a lot about the foster care liaison list. This list does get updated, but patience. People change positions, things happen, and it could be out of date, right? It is by the state, and the schools have to submit the new information to them, and then it takes a bit for it to get updated. So if it's not the correct person, the good part is that usually it gets you to a phone number that is probably still in use, and you could try to find out who that new person is. So just at least use your resources off the list and try to see who you can get in contact with the phone number that's listed. Now, with the next one is FSA user ID, and that's specifically for FAFSA. Everybody has to have an FSA user ID, which is how you sign into the FAFSA and how you electronically sign it. And that will give you the link to that. And then the FAFSA, of course, the application for federal student aid, free. Now, I say that because there are websites out there. If you don't go to studentaid.gov, there are FAFSA websites that people will help you fill out the application and then ask for a fee to help you fill out the application. If that ever happens, back out. It is a free application. That is, the first word is free. So just really be aware of it, because there's a lot of scamming that's going on right now, and that has gone on. Anything with money, people always try to scam. So if they try to charge you, back out. It's not the right place. And then we've got the tuition waiver letter eligibility. And I do want to go over some of these, so we'll probably pull up if anybody wants to see how you find out which person to call. I would like to show that website. And then the PAL coordinators and the adoption assistance contacts. Those are 2 different things. So adopted students have to contact a specific person, and foster is different. So definitely want to know the difference to make sure you get to the right person. And education training voucher, ETV, that's the specific website to them. And again, if you contact them, the coordinators are wonderful. They walk you through everything. If you have questions about the application, they will follow up with you and help you get everything that you need so that you can get that put in place. And again, that's going to be a great one, especially when you're first starting out, to help bolster any kind of cost that comes with going to college, because it is expensive. So let's see. And then the ISF, the International Student Foundation Scholarship, which is for everyone, right? Under the age of 23 that's ever lived, experienced foster care, which is a huge scholarship benefit. So really, I encourage everybody to do that one because they are wonderful. And utilize all of your benefits, all of your resources. That's a big thing, is just knowing them is number one, but utilizing them is just as important, because if you know about it and don't do it, doesn't really help to know it, I guess, at that point. You just really have to put in the work, and it's worth it, I promise. The last 4 bullet points on the resource list is just specific to anybody that needs assistance after aging out and finding help with anything that you might have questions with. Transition centers in the different regions, it's always good to know who to go to and what contacts that you have to help you still. So I just wanted to put that on there. And Connect Ed, that's just another good one for many different resources. Just in transitioning to adulthood, there's just so much that you might not have or might not know, and that's just a good resource to have. Same thing with Workforce Solutions. So Workforce Solutions have a specific, I guess it's not really a scholarship, but there's funding that they can help with for you to go to specific workforce programs. Workforce meaning programs that you're going to be going straight from school into work. So like a welding program. If you went to Colin, for example, we have the welding certificates, and we have the associate's degree. And if you go there, you can work through Workforce as well if you want, and be able to get help with certain things. So I think they even help with childcare with their benefit, which is wonderful. So the last one is a resource packet. Again, that's for anybody, just not recreating the wheel. There's information about how to get food, shelter, mental health services, Medicaid information, all that kind of stuff. So it's just important to know and to have, just in case. And then the one that I'm so excited about is the Empowering Youth mobile application. So I am on the task force for aging out of foster care, and we really put 2 years into this application, and we saw what services youth have while they're in care versus what they have out of care, and knew that there was a lot of things that can get missed because having meeting after meeting every month, and then the exit meeting, and you're not thinking of that. When you age out, you're not thinking of that. You're thinking of, where am I going to go? How am I going to live? How am I going to support myself? And that's it. So remembering everything that you need to know about your resources, it's hard. So we wanted to put together a mobile application to have it all in one spot. So this is just for Texas. This is very specific, and it has all the resource information, but it also has, so everything I just went over with education. So it will say, hey, if you want to apply for college, these are the steps, and here's the links, and here's the schools, and here's the liaisons, here's the education training voucher, all that kind of stuff. But in addition to that, it has information on, hey, if I need to get a hold of my driver's license because I never got one, or state ID, or birth certificate, or social security card, all the different things that you should get before leaving care, that doesn't always happen. And we wanted to give them links to everything that they needed to be able to get that information. How do I get my Medicaid? How do I find out my number? How do I set up a doctor's appointment? So many different things. Even if trying to think of all the different things, it even has goal setting. So if you set a goal and look back on it a year later, it'll say, this is what you did. And if you checked it off, or just encouragement. It also has on there, if you have medications that you have to take, it has a reminder and when you're supposed to take that. And, here's my prescription and here's my contact, and you can upload pictures. So once you get your documents, like the prescriptions, you could upload the documents so that you never lose that prescription number. You can upload the state ID once you get it, or driver's license, or birth certificate, or social security card. Upload it to that website and you will always have it, so that anywhere you go, no matter what happens, you can always have access to it. So this is a huge benefit. And I just want this to go everywhere because it's just a one-stop resource shop for all of our Texas youth. And I'm very excited about it. So please have them download. And that's it. That is it. So any questions, please, please, please let me know. Reach out. Even if you don't want to come to Colin, or your child's not coming to Colin. Again, I love Colin, right? I've been here for 10 years. But I just want the youth to have all of the resource information and to be able to feel comfortable knowing how to transition into adulthood. So that's my goal here, is to make sure everybody has these resources, knows what they need to do, and knows a contact if they forget. So thank you all for what you've done, and thank you, students, for listening. And if you ever have questions, please reach out.
Thank you, Susan, for your time. We want to thank all of you for joining today. I've put Susan's email in the chat again, and then I'm going to list mine as well. Some people had requested, I was answering some chats while you were talking there at the end, just how to access the link. So I'm going to put my email in there as well. So that way, if you want to just send that to me, I'd be happy to send that to you tomorrow. When I get back on campus at the high school. Send that real quick. And then we have another. They're asking if they can get the presentation slides.
Doesn't bother me. I made it. It's definitely good information. And the biggest thing is the resource list and having those web links. So just don't make it into a PDF because those web links won't transfer. But other than that, yeah, it should be good to go.
Yeah, I have a copy of the presentation as well. So you are welcome to email either myself or Susan to get the PowerPoint as well. Any final questions? Anyone else have? Okay. Well, again, this can be a pretty weighty, just lots of information. And so, Susan, thank you again. You did a fantastic job of breaking it down so that very manageable and easy to understand. So again, if there's other questions or concerns that anyone has, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, and you all have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you, everybody.